Hi everybody, this is Phil Kerner, the Tool and Die Guy, and welcome to Chapter 4 of the Journeyman. So, what have we got here? Well, as I always say, I'm surrounded by history. You'll find out a little bit more about this as we move on tonight, but somebody gave me this about 5 years ago. I got a tip. I sniffed this stuff out, right? Somebody said this fellow might have a bunch of pictures of the dies that were built at the Kerner Tool and Die Company back in the 50s, and I have it. So I can't show all these tonight. You don't want to see all these tonight, but that's part of our lesson tonight. But a little housekeeping here. Got a really nice comment the other day under one of my videos, and this guy says, "I don't know where to begin, honestly. I'm overwhelmed and a bit emotional watching your story." I know, I make people cry. I make a lot of people cry. I just retired from a 40-year vocation as a drafter, specializing in heavy turbo machinery. My dad was born in 1924, around my dad's age, and was a tool and die maker. He started at the Springfield Armory. He and I were never close, but I've always had a strong affinity for machinists and their trade. Watching and listening to you is like going back in time and understanding. I look forward to hearing the rest of your story. Well, thank you for that. It really helps a lot. You know, one point I want to make tonight, quickly, is who's teaching you on YouTube? You know, everybody buys a machine, puts it in their garage or their barn, and now they know how to record videos and they're an expert. I'm not saying they're not, but let me make sure you understand that you're learning here from a certified tool and die maker, certified journeyman by the Pennsylvania State Labor and Industry. Okay, so I've got the certificate. I'm almost shocked by how yellow it looks now. It's getting old. All right. So what does that mean? Well, you know, I was so lucky. I had the best apprenticeship. Tool and die makers. You know, we were expected to know how everything worked. And there's lathe operators out there that are better than me. There's maybe mill operators. I doubt that. I'm pretty good. But grinding guys that can grind with the millions, I can do it, but not as fast as they can. They're specialists. We were trained that if something was going wrong, it's like 3 in the morning, you're putting a die together or a mold together, and it's not right, that needs to go to the grinder. That needs to go to the EDM machine. That needs polished a little bit more. The shutoffs are too tight. Trig it out. We need to take 2,000ths off these 5-degree shutoffs because the mold's stuck open 4,000ths. All the little things that we learned, okay? And I'm going to go through my apprenticeship starting next week, all right? But that's who you're learning from, a certified journeyman tool and die maker, okay? That's really important to me. You know, a big deal is to me, I'm going to get on my high horse a little bit. I have 3 horses. I have a low horse. I was going to say midget horse, but I know that irritates people, so I won't say the word midget again. No midgets. I have a low horse, a medium horse, and a high horse. So tonight I'm on my high horse about this. You know, once you do this for a living and not as a hobby, everything changes. Because anybody can do anything if they take way too long to do it. When you're working under a deadline, trying to hold tolerances, all right, that changes everything. You're expected to perform and perform accurately under pressure. That's what I do. That's what I've done for almost 50 years, all right? So that's just my story. I'm going to dismount my high horse now. All right, so I've got some fun stuff for you tonight. I'm going to go through some little bit of my history, as I said before. This is not just for you guys, but for my ancestors someday. They know I existed. And then I've got some bad drawings. I know you guys like that. And then I got going to go through a few die-cast dies and got some one of your favorites. What's in my toolbox? All right. So we'll see you after this short presentation, short and hopefully very informative presentation. Okay, so welcome to Chapter 4 of the Journeyman. Let's get started with a little tiny bit of history here. Pack of matches. I got like 3 of these. I think they're from like 1965, and they still work. I tried one like 10 years ago. Gotta love the address. P.O. Box W35, Reese Road, RD6. Yeah, they were out in the sticks. And then I thought you guys might like to see this. My dad's yearbook from Erie Central High, 1939, 1940. That was a technical school. And interesting, he took the time to write his name in the front and spell out the whole word Pennsylvania. No PA there. And this is his class. And gotta love the teacher here. He looks like a pleasant dude. Got the big full-length coat on there, lab coat. My dad's the guy right behind the one with the tie here, peeking out there. That's Fritz. It's Mr. Youngblood, I believe, Youngbluth, and he signed the book, so I guess everything was cool there. That was a really cool looking school. We just don't build things like that anymore. And of course, look at the car out here. It was a 1920 car, maybe even earlier. Um, yeah, we don't build pleasant buildings anymore. Not sure what's going on with the smokestack there. It looks a little out of control. But imagine having a bell tower at your school, right? How cool is that? Nice trees around it. You probably feel really good about going to school at a place like that, just in my opinion. And as I say in a lot of my videos, that building is no longer there. And that's the end of the yearbook. They took the time to somebody did a nice little pen and ink sketch of the bell tower. I think that's really cool. A nice touch. All right, moving on to one of my favorite things, bad drawings. This seems to be a very easy topic for me to do every week because I get bad drawings every day. So check out this one. Get this little plate. Okay, so we go ahead and we laser this out. It's only a 1/2 inch thick. And first of all, it's supposed to be 5 by 12. That's what it should be. These edges don't mean anything. Of course, it's 12.5 by 5 1/4. So 12 1/4 by 5 1/4. They have to be an 1/8 inch all around. I'm like, do you want me to cut this? No. Just pick a corner. I said, you pick the corner. So we picked that corner. Okay, now look at this print. What are we doing here? We go from this side, 5 inches from here, 2.75 to there, 5 to here, 6 to there. And then on the Y direction, 1.25 to here, another 1/4 inch to here, 2 to there, 2.5 to there, 4 1/4 to 3/4 there. Now, so I took the same DXF file, pick a corner, 1 inch, 4 inches 250, 7 inch, 9 inches. Everything makes sense. This takes 1 minute to program. This one, got to get the calculator out and add all this stuff up. Every time I have to get my calculator out, you're taking a risk. I mean, all you have to do is transpose the number, right? And it happens. But again, clean, pick a corner, work from it. I don't care which one. Or that. Okay? Or that. I have to say, going back to this one too, I'm not a big fan of the general tolerance in the box. I get it. If you're a factory and you're making yo-yos every day, you pretty much know what those tolerances can be. Everything I do is different. So let's just take an example of this. If I really were going to follow this box, 531 through, well, what that should say is 17/32 through for 1/2 inch flathead cap screw. See the countersink? FHCS, flathead cap screw. But we have to put the 3 place dimension on, which means plus or minus 5 on a 3 place. Really? Huh. Interesting. That's why I don't like that at all. All right. I'm not a big fan of the generic tolerancing on these drawings. And we're not the only one that does it. This is an internal drawing, but I get them from customers too. So, Kerner Tool and Die Company, they made their big claim to fame was die casting dies. And if you don't know what a die casted part is, that's what they look like. You'll find them in motors, transmission parts, fans. They can handle a lot of heat. It's a lot faster than sand casting if you need more than 100 parts. And it's a process. These dies are die casting dies, or they pour molten aluminum or zinc into these things. But several years ago, I got a tip that some guy had this. There's probably 100 photos of die casting dies from Kerner Tool and Die from the late 50s. They were really getting going then. They were taking pictures. They did a brochure. I mean, I'm going to do 3 of them tonight, but as I was paging through, pretty cool. Something for GE. Look at that logo. That's still a classic logo, in my opinion. But moving right along. Now, here we go. This is 1959, die number 7989. I have no idea what this part is, all right? But look at that's where they're going to ladle it in. This is the shot. But it comes in, and then you've got this giant gate over here. And I'll get into die cast dies. I did a couple times on my website, but we'll get into it later. But bear in mind, while you're looking at these rudimentary designs and dies here, this was 1959. These guys, forget AutoCAD. These guys didn't even have a calculator, all right? It gets more interesting. Check out this one. Got a big hydraulic slide coming in here to form something in the side of this part, all calculated by hand. And then I wish I could tell you what these parts were, but this one's probably my favorite. look at the size of these cam pins. And the cam pins fit into these holes out here to activate this one. In fact, this is turned around. This thing should be probably either, these two pins should be over here or here. These long pins fit into these 15 degree holes here, and they make these slides, which you see here and out here, go in and out to form holes in the part. They're spring loaded, so as the die opens back up, these slides will follow these cam pins out. All right, so it doesn't rip the hole that you just put in the part. So it's all timed out, all calculated again by hand. Now, I want to say again, I'm sure you'll have questions on that about slides and cams and everything, but that's a very simple way to do it. But here's a trivia question for you. What do you think one of the most important guys in the shop did in a shop in 1950s, 1960s, especially in a mold and die shop? Believe it or not, it was the guy who ran this. I'm talking about the radial drill press. He's the guy that had to put the whole mold together. These rails, make sure all the screws lined up. They would actually back then take a blueprint and lay it over the plate and literally center punch right through the blueprint and pick it up with a center drill and drill the holes. And I think to get the leader pins and bushings all lined up, they would just drill all through at once and then open it up and then put the bushing, pick up the bushing holes and put that in. And I'm sure there was a lot of lapping involved. I'm not quite sure if that always went right. And of course, you've got the coolant lines and all the other stuff. So the radial drill guy was really responsible a lot for the assembly part of the mold, not the die making part, the cavity and cores, but making sure the mold frame itself that holds all the important stuff, the mold frame, all this outside part, he's the guy that did all that work back then. Hard to believe, isn't it? All right, let's move on to the shop. Okay, this is a heavy one. Let's get started. All right, this drawer is full of a lot of little hardened parallels. Some are pretty old, and some other special things we'll get to in a second. Let's start with this little set of parallels. These are actually my Uncle Mike's, MLB. I don't know what his middle name, Michael Bukowski. So that's a nice little hardened set. Remember I told you he gave me some stuff when he retired? These parallels, these are my Uncle Eddie's from Kerner Tool and Die. These are 5/8 by 5/8, and these are really handy for you Bridgeport guys. These fit right in the Bridgeport tables, the T-slots. Those are probably from the 40s or 50s. Just a hardened parallel. Another hardened block. Picked these up at an auction a long time ago. They're cute. Sometimes people ask me, what's the point of drilling all the holes in here? Well, I asked that same question a long time ago, and a tool maker told me it makes them lighter. Well, I'm like, well, how heavy can they be? Well, the funny part is, what I think he meant was, it makes your whole toolbox lighter when you keep throwing stuff like this in this drawer. If they've got some holes in it, it accumulates, I guess is a way to put it. So you can see already this drawer is pretty heavy. Another parallel, another parallel. These are odd. These are 5/8 one way and like 6/15 the other way. So you gotta be careful with these, but these are a couple 2-degree parallels I made up a long time ago. You can see they're just milled, but I must have had a block that I had to tip up on 2 degrees. They're kind of handy. For the one time I used them, I try to keep everything that has to do with angles in just a couple spots so I can find them. You can see from the side there, it's got a built-in stop at 2 degrees. This and this are 90 degrees. Let's see if I can do that a little bit better. This surface and this surface are 90 degrees. 2 degrees, 2 degrees, making it 90 degrees. Just miscellaneous little pieces here. All right, now back in my mold making days, I used to grind so many electrodes, get more parallels. This is a cute one. A little I-beam parallel. Again, this was my Uncle Mike's. Kind of cute. Alright, I used to grind so many 1 degree angles on electrodes. So this says it's for a 5-inch sine bar. This is actually a 2 degree gauge block, basically what it is. So if I needed to set up a 5-inch sine bar on 2 degrees, I could just grab this block instead of bringing gauge blocks together. That was ready to go. Well, again, because I had to do so many angles, so we'll talk about this in a minute. What's this one? This is a 1 degree block. Again, you would put this underneath your sine bar. Instead of gauge blocks, there's 1 degree. All right? And the parallels. So back to my long story here about grinding so many angles. I made up my own set of gauge blocks basically for each angle for a 5-inch sine bar. So if I needed to put on what's this one, 5 degree angle on something, I could simply grab this, grab that, and I've got my 5 degrees, all right? And that goes all the way through I went 1 degree through 15, and then every 5 degrees. So I mean, if I needed a 20 degree angle, bang, bang, done, 20 degrees. No ringing up gauge blocks or doing any math or figuring out the gauge blocks I needed. I had these ready to go. These are all oil hardened, and that's why there's a hole in the middle to put the wire through to dip them in the oil. That's what that's for, and also makes them a little lighter. So these were incredibly valuable to me back in the day. I don't use them much anymore now. The final thing, which I love, are these blocks here. I actually put these in the suggestion box as an apprentice at Anson Tools. I was grinding so many angles on electrodes. I said, what if we had angle parallels with a stop? So all you had to do was put it in your vise, like that, and all you had to do was tighten the vise, grind your 1 degree or whatever angle you wanted, loosen the vise, and just put the next electrode in, back and forth. It was very simple setup. Again, I don't use these too often. I go half, 1, 1.5. Those are very typical draft angles in an injection mold. And then 1 through 15 by 1 degrees, 12, 13, 14, 15, and I have 30 and 45. So here's the 30 degree angle block. And there you have it. Let's see if I have a piece of graphite here. So there's a piece of graphite. Set it up. Tighten it down. There you have it. Back this up a little bit more. You can see it now, okay? So these were incredibly valuable to me over the years. So that is that for that toolbox. A very heavy drawer in my toolbox. I did tell you I made the suggestion box at Anson's, and they approved it. I think I got a $35 or $50 reward for this idea, and they had me make them. When they were all done, I said, do you mind if I make myself a set? They're like, you mean you didn't make yourself a set while you're doing it? So I had to stay after every night after work until I made this. As I said before, though, I learned a lot staying after work. Again, you see the hole here. These are 01 steel, oil hardened, so that's what the wire would go through when you dip it in the oil. And then all hardened and ground. Very valuable drawer for me, and 90% of it is homemade. So I hope you like that drawer. Still a lot more to come. This is just a little bit better view of that, okay? So what I could either screw in a stop here. I've got quarter 20 holes on both sides of this vise, but you know, for grinding small pieces and graphite, the magnet works just fine. Okay, so each time I loosen this, if for some reason my parallel moves, which it really doesn't want to move because that magnet's pretty strong, but all I do have to do is put it up against the magnet again, tighten the vise, and I've got a very accurate, repeatable setup. That's 30 degrees. And of course, if you want to switch angles, you want to grind a 5-degree angle, put the 5-degree block in. No sign bars needed and sign plates. That'll do it every time for small pieces. Just want to do a little more explanation on these little blocks here. See that says 0872 on it, 1 degree. So if I wanted to set this 5-degree or 5-inch sign bar up on 1 degree, I would take my calculator and take 1 degree, 1 sine times 5, 0872, see? So rather than have to go get gauge blocks every time I was grinding a 1 degree angle, I could just do that. Same thing. Makes sense? Same thing for 2 degrees. And finally, these ones I made myself, there's a 20 degree. All set. I don't have to ring up the gauge blocks to get that dimension. It's already done. So I wanted a 20 degree angle, set it under my sign plate, usually a magna sign. I was ready to go. Didn't have to spend the time to go do the calculations or ring up the gauge blocks. And you may have noticed this little white block here. Those are in all the drawers of my toolboxes. And this is called a camphor block. C-A-M-P-H-O-R. You can get them on Amazon. They're not really expensive, and I chop them up and I put them in my toolbox. What these do is inhibit moisture to keep your tools from getting any rust or condensation on them. So it's an old tool maker's trick. The best part about it, my toolbox smells so good. When I open this thing up in the morning, it smells like Vicks Vapor Rub. If you don't like that smell, then don't do this. I kind of do, because it reminds me of the tool makers from all those years ago I worked with. So that's all that is, pieces of camphor. You'll see that in all my drawers. So that's it from here. Chapter 4 complete, the Journeyman. I do want to say, to you guys who have been hitting the donate button, thank you. Really helps a lot. You know, I don't make any money off YouTube. Most I've ever made after 57,000 views in 1 month. 57,000, I got a check for $200, all right? I can work a little bit overtime and get that, all right? But I do this because I love it. If you love what I'm doing and you like my videos, you can donate anything, $1, right? If every person that hit $1, that would be awesome. Really, just $1. I had one guy give me 100. Thank you, Gary. I really appreciate that. Very generous. And a couple guys gave me 20. Whatever, you know. But it really helps. You don't have to donate a lot of money. It's just a little support. You know, nobody wants to work for free. I love doing this, but it's always like, yeah, it's worth it, my time, right? So I don't want to get a job when I retire driving an Amazon truck. Really? I don't. I want to keep doing this. So your support does mean a lot. Thanks for watching tonight. And next week, more It's in My Toolbox. A few more die casting dies, a little more history. And we'll see which way the wind blows me. Again, there's so many things to cover, and I'm excited to do it. I'm Phil Kerner, the Tool and Die Guy. Thanks for watching.